Hey everybody, so firstly thanks to the B-Sides community for allowing me to speak. This is a 10-minute talk or a 15-minute talk. We'll see how quick I am. If I get through it pretty quickly, we can catch up later on if I go too fast. We're here to talk today about, a tale of opposing goals or a fake conflict that exists between GRC and engineering. When we refer to engineering in this talk, we're basically speaking about anybody who isn't the GRC team or a GRC professional. That could be systems or network engineers, software developers, or basically anyone that the GRC team may need to interact with. There is a need for independence for GRC professionals. There's a need for governance to be slightly disassociated from the delivery teams. But I think we're going to explore a little bit of conflict that might arise. We've got to ask the question, some separation is good, but conflict is not. So we're going to explore maybe what's underneath these conflicts. Are they real? Are they mythical? And maybe some practical ways that they can work together. Briefly, just about myself, I'm a cybersecurity consultant, working for Roll Cage Defense. I'm an independent contractor. I provide cybersecurity architecture services to large enterprises, but also SMEs. When I'm dealing with them, I'm all people to them. I've done a lot of different jobs over my career, and I raise this just because what I'm seeing is in this GRC versus engineering divide, a common pattern, a pattern that I've seen before in lots of other organizations. Even though it will focus on this particular beef, this pattern repeats over and over again. And I've seen it a couple of times before, and maybe that might inform the way I'm looking at the issue. When I'm talking to clients, I don't really get to pick a camp. I don't have a religious approach to GRC or engineering. These are some of my observations. But for everything I do in my work, I need to show that cybersecurity projects or controls that are delivered will actually have a measurable benefit to your compliance state. Will it actually benefit the GRC function? And is it demonstratively better from benchmarks perspectives? We're going to dive into a fake scenario here, trouble at Cyberdyne Industries. We're going to interview a couple of people, and they have some strong views. I'll just say that now. We've asked the GRC team how they feel about the relationship, and this is what they say. Engineers don't care about compliance. They make my job harder. They should be making it easier. They just don't see the importance of cybersecurity, of compliance. They don't realize how much money is at stake here, how much our reputation is at risk. What is the impact of fines? They don't care about NIS2, about the percentage turnover of fines. I just don't get it. Engineering, on the other hand, are even worse. They think that the GRC folks are just paper pushers. They think they slow them down, get in the way of their delivery. Why do they keep coming to us, asking us questions about what we do and basically nagging us? When we try to read their standards, we feel like they're not written for us. Are they written for an auditor, or are they written for engineers? I'm not sure. So look, we can say that these are some spicy takes. We can also say that you could drive a truck through the teams. You could also say this is a dysfunctional relationship. Now this is hypothetical and dramatized, but not a million miles away from what some people might say behind closed doors. Governance requires independence. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but is there really need for this friction? I'd say no. But they do have a common organization goal, but you wouldn't be able to tell from these opinions and perspectives. So maybe we can restate the goal for the purposes of today's talk and say, look, we want effective governance and independence, but we still need to deliver for the company together. So GRC engineering is something, just quick hands up, how many people have heard of GRC engineering? Okay, about a third of the people here. Okay, so some of you might be going, I know the solution here. It's GRC engineering. And what is it? So basically, we've got more standards, we need to produce more evidence more often, across a broader range of assets that are growing every day. How are we going to do that? How are we going to scale the team? And, GRC, automation in general and GRC engineering specifically will say, look, we need to embrace automation. The GRC engineering role is basically a person dedicated to doing this. And the biggest question then will be about, is this actually the hammer, the golden hammer that solves this problem? Is this it? Well, we've spent about 5 minutes describing the problem here. I think it's a little early to be rushing into a solution to this problem. That's the risk here, right? So I would contend that GRC engineering is more, or GRC automation is more of a skill set than a team. Those skill sets can be acquired. Do we really care where they sit in the organization as long as the automation occurs, as long as the compliance data that you need is delivered? Anytime somebody solves a problem by adding a team or a role, I would be incredibly suspicious. Now we have 3 teams working together. GRC automation, and the engineering teams. 3 minimum. It adds more friction. Whether you get the headcount approved or not. But also, has this actually solved the underlying problem? We saw the dysfunction in those quotes between people. They were miles apart. The nicer way of saying it is they're misaligned, but they are away by a country mile. Adding in another team and another role isn't going to resolve that fact that they fundamentally don't understand what each other does. So, careful now, I suppose, would be the takeaway. So we're saying, look, it's not all on GRC, but the engineers need to adapt too. But why haven't they already stepped up to the plate? Why haven't the engineers who have the capability of solving this solved it? Well, because they have zero incentive. Ways to tackle this. Get engineers to demonstrate GRC value in what they do. By delivering this, we will achieve benefit Y. Why would they do that? Well, it'll help them get their business case approved. Increasingly, they're going to have to show that. Engineering teams or delivery teams are going to have to show that they're going to improve on compliance. They can integrate reporting. Now, this requires compromise. Already, data feeds are prepared and pulled by ops and engineering teams. We're asking for more data or an extra metric or 2, because this is a small uplift. And it's been mentioned maybe about 10 times already today about shifting left. So can GRC requirements, data feeds, compliance data feeds be integrated early where it costs less? And yes, they can. I've sat on a couple of architecture review boards and I've never once heard GRC being mentioned at that juncture. Never once has somebody said, no, you cannot proceed with your design because in no place do you mention the production of data feeds for GRC. So if we're not present at the start of the process, what sort of leverage are we going to have at the end or the exit gate of a process where the GRC team asks the engineer, where's my metrics? And the answer is, well, what metrics? What did you ask for? So, yes, engineering needs to step up and we can bake in the requirements, but you have to have a seat at the table. You have to be actually speaking to have your requirements known, otherwise you've no ground to stand on. However, if you do that, then there's real leverage at the end of the process to say, hang on, there was an implicit or an explicit commitment here, but based on our requirements, and we haven't met it, so we're going to delay your project. But you had the option to work around that. So, some practical steps. And here's where we get fluffy. Ask people about what they do. Listen to their answers. There's a great phrase of somebody else's job is always easy. Somebody else's role is simple. But when you sit down and work with them and really figure out why are they doing what they're doing, you respect them, their job, you learn an awful lot about them. Like, they're not doing this for the crack. They're not trying to be a pain in the neck. So once you do that, then you have a foundation for mutual respect. And from that, you can try and find mutual incentives. So this is fundamentally a relationship problem dressed up as a technical issue. Once you know what each other wants and needs to do, well, then you can find a path forward. It stops you dragging each other in different directions. And actually, it's vector maths. We're all going in the same direction together, and we will get there faster. When engineering cannot deliver, so we talked about the happy path, which is, yes, we give engineering incentives, or we architect or bake in the requirements. But like most projects aren't greenfield, they're brownfield. Right, you're starting with an existing asset base and you need to get the instrumentation embedded in there. I've recently done some work with Tynes. They have a security orchestration, automation and remediation platform. It's brilliant. It's low code, but it easily has a great path towards Python, and it scales well out of low code / no code. I think this is a brilliant place for GRC folks to start. You don't need to ask for permission. So if you're not getting what you need, every good negotiation requires you to have a backup plan, best alternative to a negotiation agreement. So in summary, this is, I would contend, a relationship challenge and can only be solved at the foundation level by people really sitting down and talking to each other, finding shared goals and incentives, and going from there. I really strongly recommend this book. It's called Getting to Yes. This is about negotiation. The more you can do this, the more you can find shared incentives. It's a fantastic book, and I recommend, as I said at the start, this is not a problem limited to this area. It's a much wider issue. And if you can solve problems like this here in this instance, you can extrapolate beyond that. Yes, we should shift left also, if we can do it. Automation will still be required. You'll still need to start from where you are, not wish for a beautiful future where everything is greenfield. But there are low code, no code ways of doing that. And I don't see any reason why you need to wait. And this is the last thing I would add, is that this will continuously evolve, but you don't need to wait for some magic role to be defined, some DevSecOps or DevOps or magic new industry term. You can start where you are, look at what's needed, and try and work from there. I think that's the end of my time, so I probably don't have time for questions, so thank you. But you can, 2 minutes, okay, thank you. So, I suppose any questions from that? I think we're about 2 minutes. Yes?
Would you see any difference in success between Tynes, which is a bit more flexible, and the GRC automation platforms that I have out there? Would you see a bit more success in either one?
Yeah, I suppose the question was, would we see any difference between using the more dedicated platforms and using something like Tynes? I like Tynes or something like that because it's very easily consumed without needing a big project. You can get started at it almost at zero budget if you like. And I think any project that can start early and quickly and prototype is the best project. So if you have another tool already, brilliant. But if you don't, start where you are and start with something that you can achieve without having to ask a bunch of people for permission or budget. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.